Welcome to episode 40 of Posture Labs and Alignment Fundamentals. My name is Emma. Thank you so much for being on my channel and watching my videos. This is going to be a really fun one. This week we're doing Sirsasana, which is headstand. We're going to do bound headstand. This might be challenging for a lot of people, so if you've never done headstand before, like some other poses I've mentioned, I would really recommend doing this in person with a teacher you trust, just because they'll be able to see your body as you're doing it and let you know if you're doing something incorrectly. I'm going to give you the best of my knowledge over a video, but again, I would recommend doing this with a teacher in person, just for safety purposes. That's all. One thing I do like to mention before doing headstand, especially bound headstand, try to clear an area around you. The safest way, if you feel you're going to fall forward, is to somersault and roll forward. Please try not to fall out side to side because there's pressure on your neck. So try to find an open space where you can practice. You could even put some pillows or blankets around to make it a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes that's all it takes because maybe fear is getting in the way of attempting the pose. I'm going to break down the pose for you, but just because I'm giving all these steps does not mean every single person can do all of these steps today. So maybe you do step 1, 2, 3, and then you come back in a few weeks and keep practicing. This is a challenging pose to learn in one tutorial, much less you might not even learn the pose in a week or a month or even a year. It might take some regular practice. So just a heads up. Set your expectations. If you do like stuff like this, I do have a arm balance and inversion online workshop that you can buy or rent. It's all a whole week long of stuff like this, tips, tricks, and ways to get into fun and funky arm balances. I'll put the link to that below. So for bound headstand, I'm not going to cover tripod headstand. We're just going to do bound headstand today. I like to start in a forearm tabletop position. I want to make sure that I can touch my opposite shoulders. The reason for that is so that my elbows aren't out too wide. If my elbows are out super wide, I'm going to be lining my head up in line with my elbows and not making a triangle shape, but I really want to make a triangle shape with my forearms. So I'm going to touch my opposite shoulders. I'm going to keep my elbows where they are. Then I'll interlace my hands and plant my hands in front of me. When I do that, I smash this bottom pinky into the mat. It doesn't feel super great. So what I like to do is tuck the bottom pinky in, so I'm pressing through the outside edge of both hands. So I've got my elbows down, the outside edge of both hands on the mat. When I do go ahead and put my head on the mat, I want it to be the very top of my head. So I do not want to be at my forehead, my hairline. I want to be at the very top of my head. This is important because you're stacking the vertebrae one on top of another, and you don't want to put unnecessary pressure on your cervical spine. So make sure you're stacking. If you can't get that, don't worry about it. Just practice that before trying to take your legs up. It is not worth injuring your neck. So shoulders, elbows down, interlace, bottom pinky in. That's what we've got so far. Then I'm going to go ahead and place the very top of my head on the mat. That means my hands are kind of cupping the back of my skull. So I'm going to push down into my forearms. I almost want to use my shoulders and my forearms so much that I could imagine sliding a piece of paper underneath my head. So of course my head is still going to touch the mat, but I don't want to bear my entire weight with my head. I'm going to try to use more of my shoulder strength to push down. Then I'm going to tuck my toes and walk my feet forward. Now, the important part here is I have to get my hips over my shoulders. I might even want my hips a little bit past my shoulders because I really want to avoid using momentum to kick up into this. I'm going to push down into my forearms and tuck one knee into my chest. Get really light in my other toes and then drag my other knee into my chest. Starting in this low cannonball shape can really help people because you're keeping your center of gravity nice and low instead of flailing around. Keeping your knees bent will also help you engage your lower abdomen and your core. Now I want you to keep pushing down into your forearms. Maybe extend one leg up. Once you get one leg up, you can split the other leg into an L shape. This way, if you feel you're leaning too far in one direction, you can use that other leg as a counterbalance. Eventually, you'll take both legs straight up. You have to really engage your entire body here. You have to squeeze your legs, point or flex your feet, squeeze your glutes, and engage your belly a lot. Keep breathing, and then slowly start to bring yourself down. Now, there's a few things, a few tips and tricks that I like to use to balance in a headstand. The first is you can think about your arms like a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The more I lean weight into my hands, the more my body weight goes forward. So that can be helpful when I'm trying to get up into the pose. And then if I feel like I'm going a little bit too far forward, I can shift some weight back into my elbows, which is like the brake pedal, and start to bring my weight back the way I got in, which is the ideal way to come out of the pose. So the more you lean weight forward, body goes forward. More you lean weight back, the body goes back. Same thing with your feet. Your feet, not so much. This is very, very like microscopic detail. But if you think about it, when you flex your feet, so maybe when we do like big toe pose, you flex your leg to lift it up. You're shortening the front of your leg. You're shortening the front of your body, that means. So contracting, really squeezing your abdomen. So when I flex my feet as I go up into a handstand, if I'm engaging my front of my body, that's gonna help me bring my legs back down the way they got in. And then when we do things like back bending, oftentimes we point our toes, because when you point your toe, you're lengthening the front of your body and you're shortening the back of your body, your hamstring. So when I am going up into a headstand and I point my toes, if I'm lengthening the front of my body, my feet are gonna start to tip over into almost like a back bend. That would be very exaggerated, but hopefully you get what I mean. So flexing your feet is gonna help keep your legs and bring them back down the way they got in. Pointing your feet is gonna help you if you're having trouble getting your legs up, because you're engaging more of the back of your body and helping yourself get into more of a quote unquote back bend shape, even though it should not be a back bend shape. I hope that makes sense. It's a very, very minuscule detail. That's just if you're getting up, but you feel a little wobbly once you're up there. Play around with pointing and flexing your feet and see how that feels. Try to even out the weight between your hands and your elbows, not leaning too much forward or too much back. Notice here as well, it's really easy to hold your breath when you're upside down in a headstand. Please remember to breathe. I would not recommend holding this pose. Really, I wouldn't hold it for longer than 10 breaths myself, but if you're new, maybe just like 5 breaths if you've got that. You can do up to like 2 minutes, but to me, it's really not necessary. You're getting the benefits of the pose as long as you're there, I'd say, for about 5 breaths. So there's no need to like make a competition out of how long you can do a headstand. I think that's pretty much all I've got. I, again, really want to emphasize that not all the pressure should be in your head. You're really using your forearms and your shoulders. So it's actually a lot more shoulder and core work than really pressure on your neck in this pose. As soon as you disengage, as soon as you soften your inner thighs or release contraction in your core, you'll notice, because you'll be out of the pose. That's something that I love about poses like this, is that they require your full presence and full attention. So you really have to be fully committed to the pose, thinking about it while you're in it. You can't really let your mind wander or go off to other things, because you're gonna come out just like that. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. Again, if you like stuff like this, you might also like my workshop. I would love for you to rent or purchase that with the link below. I will see you back next week for our next tutorial.